I just wrote like a few bullets.
You wrote a
So
little script? Well, that's good because you're going to read it real quick here, Carolyn. Hey, it's Steve Wilmes and Matt Kieta, and we're on the Risk Control Show. And today we're joined by Carolyn Hanna, and we're talking about sustainability. So, for you viewers that haven't met Carolyn, here she is. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Carolyn, and tell us a little bit about your life in sustainability.
hello, I am a native to Manhattan Beach and just grew up in the South Bay. I have a background in environmental science. And yeah, sustainability is my passion. I was recently a environmental consultant for commercial real estate, doing phase one environmental site assessments,
And then we
doing
snatched you up.
doing a variety of reports for multifamily homes to industrial properties like steel mills and all that kind of stuff.
Fascinating. Well, we're excited to have you on because you got a little background in hazardous waste. You got your HAZWOPER 40. You got a bunch of credentials there, so it's all good. I think, Matt, if I were to ask you, like, what's sustainability, especially as it relates to risk management and loss control, what's that look like for you? I mean, can you even define it?
Well, if I'd be very scientific in my definition, but I just generally think of sustainability as getting the most out of a product without impacting the environment and being able to return that product to like the loop of resource, the resource loop, if that makes sense. So if you use something, get your use out of it, but then you're not creating a lot of waste, you're actually able to reuse it and limit the impact on the environment. I don't know if I'm in the ballpark, Caroline, or what do you think?
Is that recycle or is that
Sustainable recycling falls under that broadly.
Of course, yeah, recycling is definitely a big part of it, but that is last in terms of reduce, reuse, recycle, and the order does matter. So first you want to reduce consumption and energy use, then reuse whatever you can and recycle whatever you can't already reduce or reuse.
well, you'll be very happy because I, on a personal note, let me see where this fits in, okay? Um, I have in the bedroom, I have a little linen closet. When I purchased this new place, it has a linen closet, but the ceilings are very high, and the linen closet doesn't go all the way to the top. And so above it, you can place things in there, but it's open. It doesn't have doors like the bottom two sections. And so I'm like, this is terrible. I need more storage space, as we all do in California. And so I'm like, I want to build a frame and a door on this thing. Uh, the space is not a standard size, of course, in California. God forbid we ever build things to standard size. So I built a frame, popped that in, and now I was looking for a solid piece of wood that would look kind of nice and I could use as a door. I want it thick enough to kind of match the other doors. So I went to the typical home improvement stores, the Depot and the Lowe's, and I'm looking, and yes, you can get shop grade plywood, but it doesn't look good on the edges, and so on and so forth. So as I've been driving around, I've been looking for, people have thrown out like not cabinets, but desks and all this, but it's all MDF and it's got the laminate on there. So as soon as you cut it, it's not going to be good. So the other night I went to the trash and I saw someone had thrown out a kitchen table. And they had that it was an expandable one with some leaves. And I'm like, I wonder, is that real wood? Knock, knock. Sure enough, it's all real wood. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get my dolly. I went and got my dolly. I brought this kitchen table back, stuck it in the garage. Next day, I went down and got my DeWalt impact drill. Beep, 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 took all the, ancillary pieces off, and I was able to cut a nice sized door out of one of the sides of the table. And then I painted it, and I'm getting ready to install it. And it looks fantastic, and it's a solid piece of wood. And I would say, on a very simple level, that's reuse.
Yeah, of course. That's great. I that in my everyday life too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of craft projects as well, and I do a lot of thrifting, and sometimes I buy things that I don't think other people would want to buy. Like I bought picture frames that are falling apart and have holes in it. I just fill the holes with some wood putty, paint it over. It looks brand new, and it could have probably just been thrown away. I don't
Right.
know even why they bothered putting it on the store floor, but I bought it, and I do that.
Well, there's sustainability, and there is that old term, there's a sucker born every minute. So, so no, but I think that's like very simplistic terms. And I always wonder when we look at the United States, and Matt's going to cringe here because I use this all the time, but Japan, like if they break something, what is the name of it? It's not Kokeshi; those are the dolls. But
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
I'm not
they'll
sure.
inlay it with gold, right, and highlight the cracks, especially in a piece of china or tea ceremony cup or something like that. Don't throw things away. The crack becomes beautiful, and that's really something that we kind of need to embrace here in the United States. And those are simple things to do. I think there's a lot of that we could look at within our school districts, Matt, especially when we go into public works and facilities. I mean, we're doing it with ergonomic equipment. We pull pieces out from time to time because they're not working exactly right, and instead of just replacing it, we try to repair it and use it again to the best of our ability. Keep those for parts and things like that. But what's the challenges, Carolyn, with sustainability from our aspect? In organizations and public entities.
There's so many challenges. One of the biggest things is getting around legislation because there's a lot of things that are sustainable, but the legislation, whether it's state or local government, kind of stand in our way. So something like public transportation or reducing waste that, in certain aspects, certain companies or types of industries require like PPE, which is often not, it's required by law, and it's not easily, able to be recycled or composted. And there's certain laws in place for a reason, for public health and for workers' health. And the laws kind of stand in the way because they require certain types of PPE. And so, just in that example alone, with hazardous industries, there's a lot of people trying to change that all throughout the board, all kinds of industries, like working in, you know, recycling and composting facilities. People are starting to kind of get on board with changing the laws because they are holding us back a little bit in terms of zero waste in particular.
Right. It's interesting you bring up the PPE and doing things on site. I recall when the fluorescent tubes really kind of went from, general waste to universal waste to this uh, hazardous waste where you have to pick them up. And a lot of our clients at the time were like, hey, they have these bulb crushers that capture the mercury and the vapors that come out of here, and it's much better for us. We don't have to pay for all this hauling. And when I start to look at it environmentally speaking, yeah, you're paying a hazardous waste hauler to come and pick up fluorescent bulbs and drive them across the country, where you could crush them, capture the vapors, and bottle up your sharps glass, right, and do that on a much smaller scale when you have to start transporting things. Because again, a box of fluorescent tubes from 47 school sites in a district can be several truckloads over the course of a year. And if I can condense that down into one Amazon package, basically, that makes a big difference in the number of trips. And And so I start to think about this environmental impact, and I just look at, is there a way to kind of make a chart? Is there a chart of easiness? Is there a chart? Matt brought up an easyologist the other day. Like, we need a position called an easyologist that, makes things easy. And is there a chart to say, like, hey, here's the things that you can do for sustainability, and these are the easy ones. Like, we're doing no plastic straws, right?
Yep.
But then we got these giant plastic cups and these giant plastic lids, and we got speakers in our coffee cups. And I'm sure that people that have these coffee cups with thermometers in there and digital readouts and speakers, when these things break, I'm sure they're not, like, you think they're putting them in e-waste?
No, I think a lot of the public does not know how to recycle. And even if it is being recycled, a lot of companies or cities, like in the city of Torrance, they have their own waste trucks. So every company or city has their own criteria for what they will and will not recycle. And there's a good chance that that may not get recycled.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
recycling is an industry. It's not always government regulated, and it's kind of just whatever is most profitable that's going to get recycled.
It's funny that you bring up Torrance. I lived in Redondo Beach for many, 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 many years, ever since I really moved to California. And in front of my old house, we were on the green belt, and then they built a bike path, walking path through there, which was very nice. And then at some point, they had the trash cans, and they just determined that it was mixed use. So you could throw the recycling in there and the waste, and they would sort it at the facility. And I always thought that was really inconsiderate and rude to the people that have to sort this stuff, because along this path, it's 7,000 dog walkers throwing their dog poop in there, and you're like, seriously? You have to sort through this? Like, how does that work? And so I don't know what they really do. I'd love to go see what they really do with all this trash. I'm sure it's just all going in the landfill. Maybe if a representative from Redondo Beach is watching, that they can kind of let me know exactly what happens. But I just thought, what an a-hole move to make people sort through that stuff,
Yeah, it can be really dangerous too for people at the sorting facilities, whether it's trash or recycling or food waste. All of it gets kind of sorted in some way or another. Sometimes there's multiple sorting methods, like by hand and by machine, different, in water, using magnets, all kinds of stuff. So it can be really dangerous for them to have to sort through all of that.
Sharps, needles, all kinds of crap in there.
Yeah. And for different cities and different companies, California now passed a law that requires everyone to start composting. And for the city of Torrance, at least, they are using their compost that they're taking from citizens' trash cans, and they are turning it into generally like methane gas. So they put the food in an anaerobic digester,
right?
Which means, it's a container that houses the food, and it's rotting with bacteria that don't use oxygen. They don't want to be in the environment, anaerobic. And through that process, they release methane.
Right.
The trash companies capture that methane, and they're putting it back in their trucks. So they're saving, lots of emissions from hydrogen gas or methane gas being extracted from the earth. So
yeah, it's one of the preeminent cities that you probably wouldn't think about is Watsonville. Watsonville has a self-sustaining wastewater treatment facility, and they have those digesters, and those digesters produce the gas, which then produces the heat and all the energy for the offices and running the rest of the hazardous waste facility, or I'm sorry, the wastewater treatment facility. and they take the slurry and they dry it all out so it weighs less, so they're actually saving money on transportation cost. Like, it's all these little things that really add up to big dollars. But that facility has solar power and the methane powered energy, and it's fascinating, just beautiful. I went there and I did an audit a long time ago, and then I actually did a couple days worth of work there to learn more of the ins and outs of the wastewater treatment side of things, from the day-to-day boots on the ground type stuff, especially in this new modern facility. But that's now even 10 years out, I think, or 8 years out, you know. So what's next? I mean, what is on the radar for our cities, counties, and schools? You just mentioned composting. We wrote a grant for one of our clients for composting, and then COVID kind of hit, so we were awarded the grant, but we didn't accept the grant on behalf of our client because school closed down, of course, and we didn't want to take that money and not use it. Um, but those are things that schools could be looking for, or grants for the composting. But how would they do that? I mean, when we first approached that, there was so much money involved in now hauling off compost or moving it from site to site, um, to one center, and then really the like we get tons of complaints from our school site parents or neighbors on sound and smell and light. And sometimes, if a neighbor is using a wood burning stove, they complain about the smell. I can't imagine what the composting is going to smell like on a big school site. I mean, how do you deal with that? What do we do, Carolyn?
Well, it really depends on the city and the school, because a lot of schools use the city's, whoever is contracted to haul waste away, whether it's waste management or Republic Services, or if it's the city of Torrance. It really just depends. So if you're receiving a grant and you want to have a composting facility on the school's property and kind of make it an educational space for children to learn about the process, that's one thing. I'm sure there's some kind of approval process within the school board or the city for permitting processes, because you can't just put an anaerobic digester anywhere. I'm sure there's all kinds of permitting through the air quality district and whatnot, and oftentimes those things require power. And if it's just a composting pile, like a heap in like the corner of the
Yeah, how do you
field,
keep kids from playing in that? Now you
yeah,
gotta
that
fence
could
it.
be a big for sure.
I mean, when we started looking at the amount of money we needed to do this and run it from 27 sites, you know, it's not cheap. And,
No,
to what benefit is really the question. And
yeah.
I
Well,
think I do have a question for you since you're in this space. We'll see who knows the answer. Maybe we'll win a Starbucks gift card. The solution to pollution is.
oh, you want me to answer that?
Does anyone know?
There's really no one solution to pollution.
Yes, there
That's kind of the
is.
general concept of science. There's never one solution.
There is one solution.
Oh,
And it's
Is it?
taught in all IH courses in safety. The solution, just think about what I'm saying. The solution to pollution is, this should be a Jeopardy question. I wonder if any of our viewers know. They're all smart. Dilution. The solution to
worse.
pollution is dilution.
Oh yeah, I knew that. I learned that in school.
See?
But it's more complicated than that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I never liked this thing. Okay, if I take 200 gallons of acid and I then dilute it with water or with baking soda, and then throw it in the environment, isn't there still 200 gallons of acid sitting out there somewhere?
I mean,
Like,
it
what if we
depends.
had 600 parts per million of, let's say, chlorine gas go into the air? Isn't there, even when it becomes diluted, isn't there still 600 parts per million in the air somewhere? Not per million, but 600 parts somewhere.
Not really sure how to answer that question, but if you have some kind of acid like hydrochloric acid or something that I've dealt with my work is perchloroethylene, which is the main dry cleaning chemical,
Right.
or trichloroethylene is very toxic and it penetrates even concrete and it
Right.
gets in the soil and it gets in the groundwater and it's hard to remediate that. Even like small amounts of that is it's toxic for people and animals, and the more you dilute it, obviously it's less toxic. And the EPA has certain standards obviously for ppm, ppb of the different contaminants that are out there, hundreds of contaminants. So in theory it's still out there, but if you're not being exposed to it as often, having higher concentrations of lead in your water from your pipes or wherever it's coming from, over time, it's more detrimental to you than if you're just getting it like once in a
An
while.
acute dose, right?
Of course, yeah.
So
So
that brings up a
it's
great
still out.
question. That brings up a great question. A lot of our clients have to comply with pesticide handling regulations, right? And I recently did a pesticide handlers course. And my thought on this differs from the Department of Agriculture quite a bit. And that is the Department of Ag says if you, let's say you take out Roundup, right? And you start spraying, you use up the container. What you should do with that container at the end of the time is triple rinse it and then dispose of the container in the ordinary trash, right? And my thought on this is F that. That's really stupid. Now you're putting more chemical right down into where does that, when you rinse it out and pour it down the drain, where does it go, Carolyn?
Well, it depends in what circumstance, because in auto shops that I've toured before, they oftentimes have a sump that acquires
A
stuff from,
clarifier, right?
yeah, from washing cars, but oftentimes they have hazardous waste, drums, like 55-gallon drums that they collect from like even hand washing water,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
mix
but
wash them.
see, they just say, well, because you're
And they
spraying,
have to haul that away. They can't just pour that down the drain. And
right,
I'm not sure at what point, when it gets hauled away, what they do with it, if they let it evaporate or whatnot. But
right. But
generally,
that's what I'm saying. It's like, no, don't triple rinse it because they're triple rinsing it and then throwing that container in ordinary trash. The triple rinse, yeah, if they pour it down the right drain, will go to a clarifier. But most of the times they're not, because you know why? It's already something that you spray in the environment, right? So, but what you're doing is you're adding non-usable, right? Because it's stuck to the container. Now you're rinsing it and you're dumping it into our water system, which typically either goes one of two places: sewer or storm water. So it's either going to the ocean or river or stream, or it's going to the treatment facility now for us to try and take all that stuff out. And we've noticed that there's trace elements of all this in our drinking water. I mean, the amount of prescription medications in our drinking water is unreal. So my thought, and what I always teach is like, yeah, you can do the triple rinse, but what I'd rather you do is take that poisonous chemical container and take it right over to your hazardous waste accumulation point and put it in there so that it can be disposed of properly, right? It can be treated effectively so that we know exactly where it's going.
I
And
don't know much about pesticides, but in auto shops that I've looked at before, I made sure that they weren't throwing containers away of grease and whatnot.
Yeah.
And pretty much almost every auto shop I went to correctly, they had the containers upside down in like kitty litter or some kind of absorber, and they let it drip for like days until the bottles were completely clean.
Yeah, our auto shops, that our clients that are auto shops, what we have are, especially when it comes to oil changes, we have oil filter crushers. They put them in there, it crushes it. It basically gets as much oil out of there as possible. It reduces the shipping cost for the filters itself, but the oil still has to go. So that's one way that they're doing it. They got the paper filters as well. But yeah, they have clarifiers out there to capture all that stuff. I am a little concerned about some of the clarifiers and how the products get in there. So it comes back to design. I think part of the sustainability efforts come back to the design, and we won't see a lot of those sustainability efforts until we have modernization of our facilities. I know one of our auto clients right now just basically has a second building, and he rents part of that out, and he just ripped up the entire parking lot to put in a new clarifier for these facilities that are going in there. And even that, like when I look at sustainability, what do you do with that? What do you do with all this concrete and stuff?
So, clarifiers, sumps, underground storage tanks, it's really important to make sure that everything is removed. And oftentimes, you have to throw away even the soil if it's contaminated. So the soil, the concrete, oftentimes is just thrown away if it's considered what we would call a leaking underground storage tank or a recognized environmental concern. Everything has to be thrown away. In certain aspects, you can recycle concrete and asphalt. The city of Torrance actually, I think they have a program, or actually CR&R. They are a waste hauling company. They do recycling of concrete and asphalt. So there are some companies that will take it if you make sure to contact the right person. Every city or company is different with what they'll haul away. But if it's contaminated, oftentimes they won't recycle anything, and the soil has to get sent to a hazardous waste facility.
Yeah. You probably won't know this, and I know Matt won't. You probably won't know it because of your age, Carolyn. Matt won't know it because he's never changed his own oil. But back in the
I have
80s,
changed my own oil.
You have?
Yes.
What year?
That was about 20 years ago. I did it with a friend.
Okay. Where did you dump your oil?
I don't recall.
Yeah, because back when I was a kid, and you did your own oil change, you walked down to the end of the driveway and you poured it in the gutter.
I know we didn't do that.
It ran down the drain. I mean, that's what you did in Missouri.
Right.
It's very funny. I have a client, I'm not going to name who, but I went and I saw this personal vehicle on the school property. What in the hell is going on over here? It's in a spot there's not, and they're doing oil changes and they're dumping the oil down the drain. And I'm like, this is in 2006. Okay. And I said, what in the F are you doing? No one will catch us. I'm like, are you crazy? They can trace everything back all the way up the pipe, right up to your butt, and find exactly what you ate. So sure enough, I called all the regulatory agencies. They had to do a whole clean. I think the thing cost us like $100,000 to get all of that cleaned. Just the pipes. Unreal. So what you're saying, Carolyn, is we got to do this, but why? Why do we got to do these things?
Well, sustainability and caring for the environment is most important in terms of the sustainability of just everything in humanity. Technology, everything requires energy these days, and
What's your
things
thoughts on that?
energy.
Well, everything requiring energy. I go back to like Matt and I are a little older, and I look at the stuff, you know, do I need a weight scale that's digitized and has Bluetooth capabilities? Um, I could go into even like every watch that you have. You used to put a battery in a watch and wear it for like the Casio World Timers or 10-year batteries, you know? Um, uh, what was it? Texas Instruments used to have the little solar powered calculators. Casio watches have solar powered G-Shock watches, Casio watches. Hey, those things last forever. Now you got to charge it every night, right? Do I need 7 remotes for everything? Do I need to have a temperature gauge in my coffee cup? I think we've talked about this before. Like Matt, if Matt and I are drinking a cup of coffee, which he'll never do, if he's having a Diet Coke and wants to make sure it's cold enough, I mean, if it takes that long to drink it, like you're just not even really drinking it. Do you need a temperature gauge on your coffee cup? Do you need a speaker in your coffee cup? Everything has got
Yeah,
energy associated with it. And now we're looking at window coverings in healthcare and in schools all have to be motorized, right?
really.
Yeah, for ADA purposes. So when you start looking at that, you're going, well, we got to run. Our copper wire needs just went up because now we got to run wire to that location and power these things. The parts now, there's more parts, there's more of this, there's more of that, there's more of everything besides just simply calling the custodian and saying, can you open the blinds? Can you close the blinds if you're disabled? You know? And and that's a big problem in my mind. Again, because now we have to power everything. We got TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff that has to be stored in the cloud, and every transaction has to be done. We're seeing this. We're getting away from cash and we're getting away from coin, and we're going into credit card payments for everything. Well, every time you run a credit card, that's a transaction, and that transaction takes power, right? And if we do blockchain, it's got so many revolutions associated with it, and it's just power hungry craziness. What happened to the old cash registers that you could punch things in and it just ran off simple power very easily? Now you go to like, think about this for a second and tell me what you think is sustainable about this. When I when my dad had a swimming pool business, we started out with credit cards and carbon copy, and you went and then you sent them to the bank and you got your money. Then we evolved to a credit card reader. You had one reader and you swiped and you went, okay, it's in the system. Boom, you're done. Now you go into some of these small mom and pop restaurants and they got, oh, you're paying, we're going to charge this one on Square. Oh, we got these delivery pickups. We got a machine that prints out 17 different receipts. We got Square, we got Eats, we got Uber, we got this, everything. Everybody's got their own terminal. You got all these screens. It's like, how is that better than having one place where all the transactions occur?
It's not necessarily better in some aspects. You're not transporting as much cash maybe as you used to be. That transportation requires energy and time, and you have to hire someone to, take the money away, and oftentimes an armored car. And that's not very sustainable. And of course, money's always
Okay,
going to
that's a
be.
good one. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of little things. Like if you're talking about, you know, the calculators, the watches, when you think about it, you have your phone. I don't have a calculator anymore. I used one in school, but now we have our phone. I don't buy a calendar. I don't buy a calculator. I don't buy a notebook. I have the weather app. I have news on my phone. I don't have to buy a newspaper. I don't have to buy paper maps, etc. And I'm not using as much paper, but I am using more electricity. And so there are, kind of cost benefit analysis and life cycle analysis of all the different, alternatives. Plastic straw versus bamboo straw versus no straw versus
Paper
a
straw is terrible.
everything. Obviously not using straw is better than any straw.
No,
but
not
then
true.
Huh?
Not true. When you don't
Well,
use a straw, you get
environmental.
all the soda acid on the front of your teeth, and it eats away. So now you got to go to the dentist. They got to drill, right?
Well, environmentally speaking, like if you're not drinking soda, a lot of people drink like juice or, whatever, even water, what do you call it? Milkshakes and whatnot. I get more milkshakes than I do like soda or anything. Not having a straw is more sustainable than any other kind of straw. A glass or a plastic or, stainless steel, they all have different energy requirements and they all have different, kind of, their life cycle is different. Most plastic straws, they are lighter weight than glass and stainless steel straws, so it saves in, energy costs because it's lighter weight to ship, and therefore that is an important benefit than, reusable straws. But in the end, you are potentially polluting groundwater, the ocean, and your body with microplastics. So whether it affects the environment or not, it also can affect life itself. So that's kind of, taking into account the environment is very important, but you also have to think about your life and your health. And that's one of the reasons why I'm an advocate against plastic generally, even though it does have its benefits, because I don't want to be ingesting plastic when I'm eating fish or even drinking my water.
My former wife's cousin owns a plastic company, and her uncle invented the stint. So with the
Plastic is derived from petroleum, and consuming petroleum is one of the main drivers of climate change also. And
but do you know how much, like the converse to that argument is, you ever looked at what products are made from petroleum?
Oh, so many products, even just carpets and clothing and
yeah, you're never going to get away from it.
Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer that the only thing that should be made from petroleum are things in medicine and technology, like camera parts or, a defibrillator, anything used in a hospital, and anything used for scientific progress or, technological advancements. Whether
So
it's
how do you drive your car without petroleum products? Doesn't it go
well,
in tires?
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of petroleum that goes into a car, whether it's gasoline or not, or your tires or your car seats. So that's one aspect in which there's so many different alternatives. You don't have to have leather seats or, polyester seats. There's now several companies coming out with mushroom leather and cactus leather. So all these vegan leathers. I'm sorry.
It's all right. But you know what? None of it lasts. Like, look at these cars. That's the thing that bothers me the most. Buy this old car and the headliner on the roof is still intact 40 years later. Matt? It's like you buy a car now and in 10 years, everything's falling apart on it. We saw that with the playground tiles. They took lead out of the tiles, out of the making of the rubber tiles, and the stuff breaks apart in 3 to 5 years, where before it used to last 10 to 15. My dad still has to this day the refrigerator that we had when I was growing up, and it's still sitting in the garage running. And it's like, seriously, make things to last. Like you talk about clothing and stuff. We have that island where fast fashion goes to die, and it's like, stop making fast fashion. Why don't you just make something that looks nice, that lasts for a long time? I have a Gucci belt in there, real leather, that I've had for 25 years. Now I still have wallets that are real leather that I've had for 20 years. So I just think quality product, sometimes you can do more with less. But I can't hear you. I think your mic went off. Matt's looking like, oh my God, I'm a bad environmentalist.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. The Matt
Yeah,
drinks all
there you
those
go.
soda cans, so he's primary target number one.
Yeah, I
Give me
recycle.
1 second.
Carolyn.
Can I have just 1 second so I
Yes.
can take care of the
Yeah,
dogs?
absolutely.
Sure,
Matt, what do you
sure.
think about this conversation?
I think that I think the primary thing that has been running through my mind through all this is that society is in a constant state of battling between priorities. So we've
Right.
got sustainability on one side, right?
Right.
But then we have convenience.
Right.
It's probably the number one thing, right? Is the convenience. Okay, yeah, this is terrible for the planet. It's absolutely not sustainable, but it's easy.
Right.
and on top of that, it's also often more profitable. That's one of the downsides you can say of a capitalist society, is that if companies are allowed to produce something that isn't very sustainable, but it is profitable, then they will maximize that so they can hit that bottom line. They can maximize the dividend price, and the value of their company, and sell more products. And in the end, they don't really care that much about where do those products end up going, or whether they're built well, or so do they sell. And that's the thing. We all have to make a conscious decision to accept that we're going to have to maybe have some more inconveniences in our life to make things more sustainable.
Well,
Yeah,
I go
really true.
Yeah, I go back to when I was growing up, and I think about, gosh, we bought soda. It came in glass bottles, and we always just took them back to the store. We got off our butts, and we weren't as fat because we had to go change the channel on the TV.
Yeah.
We didn't. I don't know. I just look at these things, and I'm like, I don't know what the answer is. I think
there's never one answer.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that your priorities, my priorities, Matt's priorities, and everyone else's completely different. And I think Matt hit on something with the convenience. There's so many times I go to the grocery store, and it's like, I need 4 bags. Or do I go to the grocery store 7 times a week? I don't know. But I know during the pandemic, when Walmart was like, oh, we're not handing out bags. We ran out of bags. What am I supposed to do? Carry 27 items out by hand? Like come on, and those things are just tough. But I do think there's some things that we all should try to agree on. Like, you don't need to be able to get one little tiny little thing from Amazon at your every whim and disposal. Oh, I need a pen. Boom, I'll order 1 pen, and here it comes in this giant box. And there's been times where we order things for our office, and I think we've done some pictures of it, where it comes in this enormous box, and the thing's like this big, and you're like, really? Seriously? Like, I think it just stems down to making better choices, and the employees have to be engaged in it. But all right, here's the ultimate question. Matt.
Yes.
Top 5 things that our clients can do right now for sustainability.
5 things for sustainability?
Yeah, go. Where's that music? What is it? Carolyn's like, come on, Matt.
I and put me on the spot. I'm just thinking of how you handle your waste, ensuring that you're getting everything out, as much of the product as you can before you discard it, that you are not, that you're actually finding different ways. I mean, Caroline mentioned at the start, buying an old picture frame, and adding a little bit of clay or whatever, painting it over, and looks as good as new. How quickly are we throwing things away? We're just instantly, no, we're going to throw this away. We're not going to find another way to use this. I think it's probably the first thing is to encourage employees and just the staff in general to consider ways of how we can get the most out of the products that we do have, that we are using.
My first thought is buy everybody a Mont Blanc pen, so that when you walk around to the desk, you don't see 25 pens sitting at everybody's desk. I mean, that just drives me crazy when you go and it's like, oh, I got 13 blue Bic pens and 7 red pens. What do you need all those things for? One pen.
I use one pen and I buy pen refills.
Right, one pen. Here's another one for, gosh, I got these ideas. I don't want to give them away, but I'll give one away. Toothpaste. Why do we have to buy, no, dental floss. Why do you get little things of dental floss? Can't I get like a spool of floss and put it in a bigger container so I don't buy it one time for a year?
Yeah, great.
All right, Carolyn. Matt fell short. No prize for him. Cities, counties, school districts. What's the top 5 things that they need to be doing?
Probably the top 2 most important things are waste reduction and energy consumption. So whether that's, using school buses or using LED lights, that kind of stuff, how ADA powered, wheelchair lifts, how is that powered? All the different aspects of a school that requires power, whether it's,
it's
using
funny you bring that up with the LEDs, because the LEDs, we have some clients that are going through those right now, and they have to take all the ballasts out from their existing lights, and then they have to direct wire, and then they have to switch out all the bulbs. So those bulbs haven't even reached their end of life usefulness, and they're getting destroyed.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a lot of industries do that, especially when there's certain laws put in place and they don't really care what happens to what's being used right now. It's just like, okay, new law, get rid of it. We're going to use this instead.
Right.
So,
all right. So you got waste reduction, energy consumption. Give me 3 more.
3 more. I would say one of the most important things is education, because educating the next generation to be environmental stewards is vital for, our civilization. If we want to continue to be a successful species and be technologically advanced, we have to ensure that all of our young people are educated on how they can affect the world in a positive or a negative way. So those are probably my top 3. The last 2, I don't know. You put me on the spot. I could have thought about this, but
that's what we like. We like to see how well
probably pollution. Pollution.
So Steve likes
pollution.
Pollution in terms of, this goes back to waste reduction. If everyone is using single-use juice boxes and then they throw them on the ground, that's, 2 issues right there: waste reduction and pollution. And those little straw wrappers get everywhere. I picked up a bunch on the beach for California Coastal Cleanup Day. They just get everywhere. They just fly everywhere. And it's very hard to find them because they're usually clear, and animals will often eat them because they think it's food. And in the end, it can end up in us if animals eat them, and we eat the animals.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
top 4. Fifth one, I don't know, Steve.
Steve, how about ensuring that the way we're transporting things is done as efficiently as possible? So we cut down on driving, cut down on emissions through driving and through transportation. So you mentioned one possibility earlier, how several different districts might produce their fluorescent bulbs and they don't break them down, and you've got multiple truckloads across a course of a year going all over the country and creating all this pollution, when you could crush those at one spot,
Yeah,
narrow
they
it down
could,
into
but the
one
permit
little load.
process on it is so onerous, it's ridiculous, you know?
Right.
And I think that's so my top 5 are going to be, and I'm just going off the fly here because I threw that question at you. Number 1, and I can't believe you guys didn't think about this, because yesterday Matt came up with easyologist. We need sustainability positions. We need people in the position of sustainability. You need to get these hired. You need to have enough in there working to do that. You got to educate, like you said, the people at the sites on what this means. But that means that there should be someone at each of our school sites, each of our city facilities, that has the knowledge of sustainability, what that means, what it looks like. And part of the problem is the complexity of things. And we see this in the purchasing. So my next thing, number 2, is purchasing, right? Let's start to, we do it when we're told, hey, we got to do it because you got to put fruit and veggie on every child's plate. I think that's a terrible idea, because when that happened, our client, a school district client, they started getting all kinds of custodial shoulder injuries, slips, trips, and falls, because the kids had to take the fruit from the lunch line and then they walked out and they threw it on the parking lot because they're never going to eat it, right? And so what are we doing there as a society, as in an environmental thing? We just took all this water and land and pesticide to grow this thing, this product, and all we did was take it, we shipped it across the land, we spent all that emissions, and then the kid throws it on the ground only to be disposed of with no use. And tons of it every day out of one school district, because in this community, kids are not going to eat that stuff. It's not Manhattan Beach, you know? So the thing that I want to see is, look at what you're buying. We go into these places and we'll see people got 25 pens on their desk. Why? Why do you need that? Why does every person in the organization need a printer? You know, can we do some centralized printing, right? Do we, this is the big one, especially with chemicals, Matt. When we go out, we see, hey, I got 7 brake fluids. Why do you need 7 brake fluids? Right? What vehicle? Oh, well, that was for this one vehicle and this was for another vehicle. Okay, but you don't need 7 of them. Can we have a conversation and agree on which one we like and why we're using that, and then use all of it instead of quarter of this bottle, quarter of that bottle, quarter of this bottle, and all that stuff gets thrown away. And so we see that with all kinds. We got brake cleaner, we got carb cleaner, I mean, it's just go on and on. So you're telling me that this one's better than the other one, is better than the other one, better than the other one. You know, that's part of it. So sustainability. Next is the waste reduction, as you're saying, but it's got to be at the beginning, which is, product purchasing. We got to cut this stuff down. We don't need all this crap all the time. And that comes down to, even, especially when we look at ergonomic products, we'll see in furniture products, we'll see this all the time too. There's no standard. And when there's no standard, that means that the department heads get to pick the furniture that they want in there. Then they buy something and you got 3 of these desks and 6 of these desks and 8 of these, and then you go to install something or something breaks and there's no parts for it. And so now you got this whole area filled with all these parts that may or may never get used, but were created. And that all takes energy, it takes resources, if we standardize in our entities, then that means when someone switches desks or we go down in population or something breaks, we can have a couple parts on hand to replace that, and we're not loaded up on all this junk. And when you buy in bulk like that, you get economies of scale, purchasing power, reduced cost, and a lot better service. I'll guarantee you the client that comes to us one time in 10 years, we still give excellent service, but the client that we work with on a daily basis, of course, we're going to be there every day, right? We want to make sure that we're taking care of that, right? And not to throw that off. So that's my top 3 right there. 4, 4, 4, 4. Look at this kind of goes along with purchasing, but look at your vehicles, right? The vehicles. So many times we buy these because we want something cool. We want to be known. We got maintenance and operations supervisors driving the second tier large truck like the Toyota Tundra or the Ford F-250. They never carry parts. They don't go anywhere. Why do you need that big truck? It's a gas guzzling monster, right?
Yeah.
And I have a truck and I drive it a lot, and I try to ride the motorcycle or take the car when I don't have stuff to carry. Sometimes it's raining and that gets difficult. But point being is, reduce that stuff. So that's the second one. E-waste. That's the next big one. And again, this goes back to purchasing. What was the client we went out to, and there was literally 300 iPads sitting in the parking lot, like piled up, not even shrink wrapped or anything, just sitting there in the parking lot. Like, what's going on? Oh, well, they got new iPads. Well, where are these going? They still work. Why are we just throwing them in the trash? Real.
Yeah, complete waste.
Yeah, education. Well, that's all I got, folks. That's been an interesting show. Welcome, Caroline. And thanks for being on. Guys, we'll see more of Caroline in the future. And if you got hazardous waste, sustainability issues, please contact us because we got it all. Don't forget to check out our Dollar Training Club, Udemy, and our blog. And I think, Caroline, you're going to be writing some blog posts for us on some of these topics too, so that we can get a little deeper on the insight. But if you got questions, please leave them in the comments. Shoot them on over. We're happy to answer them. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Risk Control Show.
Yeah, folks.